Jensen.
Present.
Kevin Wasik.
Present.
Yanni Primus. Present. And Lonnie Urquiza. I'm here. Next, I will allow 3 minutes for the public to get up and speak on anything that's not on the agenda. And this would be your opportunity.
Hi, my name is Shannon Stillwell, and I'm actually organizing a committee for the Friends of North Shore Fire Department. They have a measure N, that will be on the ballot come November to achieve 3 goals. One is to hire and retain firefighters. The other is for engine and equipment replacement and repair. And the third is to maintain and improve the fire station. So it's one North Shore district. I know a lot of people think sometimes they're still individual entities, but it's a large area of 357 square miles, county line to county line. So the guys at North Shore Fire do a tremendous amount of effort. They're an all-risk agency that does everything from recovery out of the lake to traffic accidents on the highways to structure fires to wildland fires, which we're all very familiar with. So the committee is actually organized of citizens and community members that are in support of Measure N and trying to get this to pass. I'll be conducting some outreach meetings in all of the different communities. I do have this room booked, or not this room, but the room booked on September 7th for an outreach meeting to answer questions about the tax measure, give you some implications about what it entails. We have made it easier, so instead of being a unit of benefit, that is typically how the tax breakdown is, we've done it by a parcel, so it's more straightforward to really understand what your tax fee would be from that direct charge. The monies go directly to the fire department, and they're definitely in need of that. So I'm happy to answer any questions after tonight even, or if you guys want to participate or anybody wants to know more about what we're doing, but I hope to come to all these on a regular basis and continue the outreach to the public here in terms of supporting Measure N.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for 3 minutes?
Actually, can I say something?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
So, I'll stand up. So, I think I know pretty much everybody in here. I've been volunteering here at the Senior Center for about a month and a half now. We're starting to roll out Saturday breakfasts, put out all kinds of food. My son and I am a team of volunteers. And we are working on trying to get the volunteers fed with good, healthy food. And so we have a tip jar over there by all of the snacks. That goes into a fund that is specifically just for the volunteers at the Senior Center and people who might need a meal here and there. But that will be used to buy produce, proteins, whatever it is that they need. And we're just giving our time to go and prepare. So anyway, red box over there is for the Senior Center.
Anybody else?
I wanted to speak, if I could. I'm a Lath
Sure.
resident.
We're at the portion of our meeting where anybody in the public can speak for 3 minutes.
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
My name is Vincent Reese. I'm a Lucerne resident. Over by the subway here on Highway 20, there was a gym, and it was owned by the Lucerne Clinic when it was ran by Partnership Health Plan. I went in there January of 2017, there's a picture of me here. I weighed 478 pounds. By going to the gym there, I've gotten myself down now to around 322. As of when the gym closed, right now I'm 340, I'm going back up. At the end of May, Adventist Health took possession of the gym, and it's still sitting there empty. It has one here from the health plan insurance where they talked to Dr. Gardner, who was part of the clinic, who now works for Adventist Health. And he said, it's the same philosophy as drug treatment, Gardner says, referring to estimates that every dollar spent on addiction programs, and food can also be an addiction, I have a food addiction, yields $4 to $7 in reduced crime and criminal justice, or up to $12 when healthcare costs are included. I wouldn't be surprised if it's equivalent for exercise programs. They used $10,428 award to purchase equipment for the physical medicine center. That's what they called the gym there. The $10,428 worth of equipment still sits in there. Sits in there since end of May, and as of right now, Adventist Health saying they don't want to reopen it. They're saying there's no running water. Well, Subway's right next door and they have running water. The last day I was there at the end of May, they had running water. They said that the roof had problems. When I had been there for 2 years, the roof had been redone many times. And I guess at this point, I'm just at a loss for this. I've butted heads with Adventist Health. They're telling me they're just going to close it, and that's the way that it is. They said they're focusing the Adventist Health and Dr. Gardner's issues on Suboxone treatment right now. And I pray for those people that are addicted. But my question is 2 or 3 years from now, when all those people are sober, what's going to happen then? A lot of them already have addictive personalities, got food places all up and down the street. Next thing you know, you're going to have people 400, 500, 600 pounds lining up for bariatric surgery. I think opening this gym and having the community work together on opening this gym might help out. I'm going to give it about another month, and if nothing works out for me, I'm going to invoke my patient rights, which is a third-party thing that's available in all hospitals. And what they do is they don't work for Adventist Health. They look at the situations that's happening, and they have a third-party hearing on it, and they decide what's best. And it's a lot of people went to this. Elderly people, people like me that have eating disorders, so on and so forth. Now I'm going to Quail Run. It's fine, but there's no structure there. Here we would put our pictures on the wall, we would clap for each other, there was camaraderie. That's all gone now. And now I'm, over at Quail Run just trying to do it on my own, and I've already gone up 20 some odd pounds. It's really hard to do without a structured plan.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
For that information. Maybe after the meeting, if more people want to speak to you about that, you can.
Great.
Or you can discuss it more.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm interested in that too.
Thanks.
So, anybody else? No? Okay, I'm going to move forward with the agenda. The first one would be update on the drafted proposal for bylaws. Do we have any public input on that? Can everybody hear me? Okay. I said the first item on the agenda would be the drafted proposed bylaws. Do we have any public comment? And so,
I don't have a list of
Here's
proposals, so I
here's
can't
the
comment.
copies here.
yeah, I made a couple of copies of the
Okay.
agenda.
And then,
Are you on the email list?
Well, I'm not aware of it,
Oh, okay.
but I've been attended one of your sessions.
Okay.
Thank you. So I can't comment on it now, so maybe later.
We still need to approve the last month's minutes.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
We have actually a number of them, so.
Read yours.
I skipped over something. I forgot the minutes. So,
Get them up in front of me. So going back to, we have, looks like June and July to cover. This is the June minutes from June 4th, 2019. This was a subcommittee to consider proposed revisions to the Lath bylaws. Present at the meeting were Lonnie Arcusa, Danny Primus, Kevin Wachik, Lord Stuzen, Sue Dillard, Dale Grable, and Anthony Primus. The regular meeting of the subcommittee for the proposal of revisions to the Lath bylaws was called over by Lenny Arcusa at 12:05 p.m. on June 6, 2019. Public input, Dale Grable inquired about the possibility of starting a Lucerne Business Association targeting businesses in and surrounding Lucerne. Roundtable discussion took place between council members and members of the public. Suggested changes were noted and posted on the Lath website and the Lake County website, or we were to do that. And we posted them on our website. I don't know if they're on the county website though. And that's the June minutes. You want to take them separate?
Yeah.
So.
So this is the one that needed to be corrected to June 6th, is that correct?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. The date on the minutes was in error, and Danny has updated that for us. Just a little, I gotta fix it. Curious if we can. So what we need is what we need is this is actually the sign. What we need is a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Yes.
Do you want
Can we
to?
get a motion?
My motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
And then the minutes for the July 18, 2019 meeting. The meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. Approval of the May minutes tabled due to no internet. I may be ahead of myself. I have another set of minutes here. The May minutes couldn't be read due to no internet. Special council meeting minutes couldn't be read due to no internet. Tonight we have internet here, so we're good. Greg Stanley discussed volunteer weed eating services. The bylaws subcommittee meeting minutes were approved by Lanny, Danny, Kevin, Jensen, McKelvey voted nay. Lanny read the agenda. Joanne Ciccato from the Lake Family Resource Center spoke regarding the disaster resource navigation assistance project phasing down in August. There's a misspelling there. Pardon me. Anthony Primus proposed that discussion of the Lucerne Area Town Hall website be on this agenda, on this meeting's agenda. Danny Primus read a letter from Betsy regarding community preparedness, Meals on Wheels, homebound visitations. Kevin presented a new bulletin board tool for the agendas he's put together. There was a presentation by Anita Grant for the Brown Act requirements. Grant began the presentation by pointing out that the Lath rules are different from the BOS and explains that the role of the Lath as a MAC is to advise the board supervisors regarding services, public health, safety, and welfare set up by BOS and was set up by Board of Supervisors resolution. That resolution contains language that council members must be both town resident and voter. The Lath cannot hold closed session meetings, has no legal counsel, and cannot entertain property purchases. The rules, she said, were designed to open all the curtains. Item 2 was emailed regarding McKelvey and Jensen. Charles Bain said that if the rumors he's heard are true, that McKelvey and Jensen should be removed from the council. Bain declined to say what the rumors were, or who told him those rumors. Anthony and Danny Primus expressed opinion that McKelvey and Jensen caused problems for the council and town by canceling the June meeting. Jensen explained that there was a misunderstanding because he didn't cancel the meeting but was directed to make notifications that the meeting had been canceled by the vice chair who was in consult with the chair. McKelvey says he'll take the blame for the canceled meeting and in order to move the meeting forward. Wojcik said the meeting was posted someplace in the courthouse, so he thinks it was properly noticed. Anita Grant weighed in at that point and reaffirmed that canceling the meeting was the appropriate action. Jensen thanked Kurt and Danny for canceling the meeting, or Lonnie, pardon me, for canceling the meeting and protecting the town council. There was no action taken. The updated revised bylaws discussion. There was a discussion regarding stakeholder versus residents. Anita Grant offered that residents is part of the authorizing resolution for all the town hall, area town halls and can only be changed by the Board of Supervisors. Kenny Parlett says he pays more taxes in Lucerne than anybody, so should have a voice. Anita Grant established that Members means the council and not the public which attends the meetings. Subcommittee proposed to continue discussions. Motion to set subcommittee meeting for Friday, 26, 2019 at 2 p.m. at the Senior Center, and there was unanimous consent. Item 4 was the Alpine Festival. Discussion during which Jensen played questions whether event organization is within the scope of the advisory council, and Kurt points out that we have no administrative or financial capacities in order to conduct such an event. The advisory council would have to partner with an organization or individual with those capabilities, and it was tabled unanimously. An update on the county budget funds allocated for dredging and docks after formal council issued resolution A0001, first presented by McKelvey during the previous year's town hall. Primus thanked Lanny, Danny, and Kevin for going to the budget meetings where the BOS unanimously approved allocating the funds based upon the resolution. Item 6 was an update on the loan forgiveness project and a discussion of the $8 million loan and letter drafted at earlier subcommittee meetings. Discussion about the mechanics of the letter. Shannon from Cal Water speaks to the process and advocates for Cal Water to partner with Lath to lobby for loan forgiveness. Supervisor panel suggests setting another subcommittee meeting to pursue process goals and prepare a letter to California State Governor Brown. Kurt moved for the subcommittee to draft a letter and petition loan forgiveness. At that point, there was more discussion, and the subcommittee was set for Monday, the 29th at 10 a.m. Initially at the bait shack, and then moved from there to the firehouse. Lanny moved to table the last two agenda items due to the late hour. Kurt moved to adjourn. It was unanimous. Meeting adjourned.
So I like to make a correction, Kevin.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Governor Brown. I think it was Governor Newsom. No?
Oh, pardon me, Governor Newsom. Thank you. You're right.
Yeah. Okay.
Requested them to go in there and change it. So there's a couple of misspellings on that, and I'll change those. So what we need now is a motion to approve with.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember asking to conduct a subcommittee. Those words may have sounded like that. What I wanted was to meet with Cal Water, Flo, maybe a representative from your group. I wasn't asking for a subcommittee because we had just had the training, and I didn't want to get into the whole situation.
So I'll just change that to a meeting. I think we're good.
Can we get a motion for the amended minutes?
So I move to approve the minutes as amended, correction to change Governor Newsom. Second.
I second.
All in favor?
All right.
Motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Our next,
We gotta go back to May though, right?
Is there anything else?
We got to do May as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Just changing Newsom right now. I'll do that. This is the May 16 draft minutes. Kurt was absent from the meeting. During public input, the Western Region Town Hall shared their approach. Is that right? Yes. Yes. There was a presentation from W-Trans. Steve Weinberger, from W-Trans, spoke regarding highway safety and traffic calming. Some redesigns, including bike lanes and maps and so on. The subcommittee reports regarding the Lath resolution A0001, which was read. I move to implement that, seconded by Danny. That passed unanimously. There was a petition regarding the SDW SRF loan forgiveness discussion. The petition was read, Danny moved, and we moved to move forward with the project to write the loan forgiveness letter. Danny moved and I seconded. It was also unanimous. We had a CC4C implementation presentation or subcommittee meeting, but there was no attendance at that subcommittee meeting. After that, we had a discussion to consider Lath becoming a part of the action of the CPUC proceeding to give formal input from and advocacy for concerned water ratepayers. I moved, Danny seconded, it was unanimous. The deadline is was mid-June. We considered updates to the bylaws and set the subcommittee with no date at that time. On future agenda items, we're to have an update on Adventist Health, a discussion of the peers, and that was going to be David Cowan, and he's since resigned. EJ reported on plans for the Brown Act training and said he was working on it, and that happened, and the meeting was adjourned.
Do you have any questions? Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you, everybody. Any other ones?
No, we're good. I'm just trying to catch up here.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm having really a hard time of hearing all of the different conversations going on.
Well, we just approved our minutes from May to July.
Okay, but
So we're some problems with the internet here, so we get it. Yeah, and all the minutes will be on the Lath website and the county website that you can read as well, so. Okay, our next one is updated on draft proposal bylaws.
So,
Oh, is there any public input? Okay.
so we had the meeting, which we didn't have a quorum established, so it turned into a workshop, basically. It was the usual, it was the people who came. Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, so we had two slight changes to the changes that we had before, but for the most part, it was the same people who sat through the bylaws meetings the other two times, so for the most part, everybody was happy with all of the changes, and we have them ready to go if they're accepted, which can't happen at this meeting.
Where were the two changes?
That
you're-
I did. Well, I know one of them was to address the confusion between chair and vice chair and the creation of the agenda, so it's not one person having to wait for the other. It's more streamlined, and so the basic gist of that was that they were wanting the chair to have control of the agenda and for the vice to have control of the meetings when the chair's not present.
Okay. Remember the other one?
The other one, well, stakeholder was already on there. I mean, do you want me to go over that just to get it clear and in the?
No,
Because
I
I know.
just wanted to see what you guys discussed, what you wanted to change on the bylaws that you had at that meeting. Or were there any additional changes that you guys?
Okay, yeah,
Bro,
no, it was
for that-
only those two.
Okay. So we'll need to write those changes up, submit them to the public for public input. We'll address this at the next Lath meeting. Anything else?
There's, just to let everybody know that we have a map now of all the streets from First Street all the way to Conate with every parcel number and address. So if anybody moves into the area or starts a business in the area, we have the address of where it is. It will always be here at the meeting. It's sitting right there if anybody would like to look at it.
Thank you. The next discussion, update on the loan forgiveness meeting. And do we have any public comment on that agenda item? Go ahead, Charles.
I'm just making an update. Charlie was here flow. TJ, Danny, Cal Water, Shannon, and I, we've had 2 meetings just to discuss it. Cal Water's awesome. They've actually helping guide us in the right direction where we need to go and how we need to proceed. I think they've been, asked TJ, I think they've been very productive.
Yes.
I had some contacts at the Water Resources Control Board, I think I say it right, and they're gonna look into, because that is where the loan is at. So they are the people, and the one lady I talked to is going to look into their financial department, who has the loans and stuff, and find she took all the information, when the loan was, and all like that. And she said within the next 2 weeks, she'd have somebody get back to me, the appropriate person who can help us and guide us through what we need to do to apply for the loan forgiveness and what all we need to do.
That's great.
So I think we're just kind of, and EJ has another, Shannon gave us the name of another lady there that he was trying to contact, who is on their board, who is what do you say, sympathetic towards our cause and things like that. So EJ's going to write her a little letter and stuff, and so we're also going through that way. And we don't have another meeting set up right now, so we'll probably just kind of wait and as it goes along, as we hear from these other people and proceed, then we'll try to work them up. But I do have to say that Cal Water, all the years that Flo has for 14 years, have been adversary with them. The last couple of years, they've really changed, and Shannon couldn't have been more helpful. And I gave everybody this little flyer we put out, because she said, when we get that far with whoever we go to, public statements and comments on the water, like I've got 2 statements from 2 seniors who live on a $900 less fixed income, and how the water rates really affect them and being able to do things. So if anybody knows of anybody who wants to make a statement, you can drop the letters on statements out here at the senior center, email them to me, that's in there, or call me, and I'll come and get them. But things like that would be pretty important.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie, for all your help with this, too. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can add. Kurt was also a part of it as well. We came up, well, I wrote the letter there. I sent it to Shannon and Kevin is his name? Kevin?
Yeah,
Kevin, yes. And Kevin was out of the office, so we weren't able to send it over, but I'm going to send it over today. We confirmed that it is her email, so we have a contact for her. I was going to try to meet her yesterday because I was in Sacramento at the RCRC meeting, and I was going to try to meet right afterwards, but I could try to find another time or a phone call or whatever the case may be. And so I just pretty much wrote a history of it, and she was appointed to the board, and she is an advocate for severely disadvantaged communities. So we're hoping that if we write to her and keep our concerns straight to her, maybe we can get a little more assistance with that. And so what I can read to you what I wrote, and maybe you guys can add something before I send the next email. You want me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. So I initially asked to conduct a meeting, but I'm going to leave that part out because that didn't happen and I didn't get confirmation from Cal Water. And actually, that's the other thing is they're not necessarily, they're there to help guide us, but it's not them really asking for the loan. It's the town of concern and us asking them. And so what I wrote was, we are a severely disadvantaged community, and the majority of our residents are paying almost double towards revolving fund fees for this loan. I have many emails, testimonials, and statements from the community in which they are conserving water to lessen the burden of charges. They have formed a community organization to work towards fixing this problem. They have conducted their due diligence in working with the county and local water company Cal Water. The hindrance is that the community applied for this loan in January 2009 to build a treatment plant to ensure the water was in compliance with the Department of Health at that time. The compliance order of 2003 is what sparked the necessity for the water plant to be enhanced. Unfortunately, the community is the one bearing the burden of these costs. However, they are severely disadvantaged. The loan initiated was $7,078,698 at a zero interest rate for 30 years. The Cal Water Company is doing everything they can with the community to adjust fees, and in 2016 they accomplished a more soluble water bill for the community. We are hitched for another 20 years, and the remaining balance is roughly $5 million. We have inquired to the state senator and assembly representatives in our district, and they are under the impression that they could not work towards applying a loan for a privately or for-profit company. This is not necessarily the case. The community of Lucerne is the one burdening that cost. So the compliance order designated by the California Department of Public Health, which is now the California State Water Resources Control Board, had enforced this more or less on a severely disadvantaged community, and we would like to fix and address this. And then I just went on about how I'd like to meet with you as soon as we can, and I put the 14th. And if this is not possible, I'm glad to accommodate a time to meet with you, and even a phone call would suffice to ensure we can discuss the situation for the constituents of Lucerne. Lucerne is in the heart of my district. It is by far the most indigent of all the towns in Lake County. Anything I can do to help this community, would be great. And then I gave my contact information. If there's anything else, I know Kurt, you've done a lot of work on this. If there's anything you'd like to add, you can either let me know afterwards or just email it to me.
Thank you.
And I'll wait for that before I send it. Sure. And that way we get the full picture of what's going on with this situation, and hopefully we can get the right people helping us the way we need to for this. So that's what go ahead.
Thank you.
What was her name?
Laurel Firestone.
Laurel?
Laurel, yes. Laurel Firestone.
And she's with RCRC?
No, she is part of the California State Water Resources Control Board. She was appointed in February, and she's right up our, I think that's also why Cal Water has trying to get us to contact them, because they realize this is what she specializes in, and that's why so it's like the right time to try to get this addressed. And so I know that the argument when I inquired about this before I was the supervisor in the meeting with McGuire, in the response from Taylor Morrison was, we cannot help a for-profit entity. Well, this isn't the case. This is a community that's bearing this bill, so that's what we're going to keep trying to drive home. And we're trying to not mention Cal Water as much, so they don't feel like they're advocating for profit there as a community. So that's the approach. If anyone else has anything to add, I'd be glad to add it and try to get that meeting going as soon as possible, because I just want to make sure something gets done.
Maybe add that Lucerne is in the Torres County state.
Yeah.
So that might,
Yeah, I just emphasized on the town, so I need to do the county too,
Okay.
so that helps. Yes, and Charlie's work on this, and Kurt, all the work that you guys have already laid in place, it really, it's just re-sounding the microphone again, but it's good that we have everyone at the table to try to drive this home this time. So that I think we're going to get somewhere. I'm going to do what I can to get somewhere, and with your help, of course. It's not just me; it's all of you.
Thank you.
So,
So basically, if we can get in contact with her, all this other information that we have and stuff, then we would bring it to her. You're just trying to get the door open.
yes, I'm just trying to get the door open so you
We
understand.
don't want to overload her with all the stuff, okay?
Right.
And EJ, I think Elizabeth and I have some statistical information you can use to bolster the claim.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that goes over employment countywide to illustrate.
That would be highly beneficial. So yeah, anything that I can do to add to this letter, just to get her to have a meeting and maybe start going to those meetings or whatever the case may be, to get her and get them to forgive this loan or something. So, yeah. All right.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
The next item on the agenda was discussion and consideration for a public board at the Lucerne Harbor. And this was Kevin's idea, and I'm assuming that you're taking the responsibility of building it
I was
and
going to see
doing
if
it?
I can get volunteers.
Okay.
What we'd like to do is put another bulletin board up, like we have at the post office. So when we have town meetings or somebody wants to sell something, it would be at the launch ramp. So when you went to launch a boat, if you're doing something, there'd be a bulletin board with information, all different types of things in the town. So I'm looking for some volunteers that would like to help build.
It's a Parks thing, so you might want to
Oh, yeah, I
start.
know.
You might want to start with those guys.
Yeah, they're the ones that put up all the number was and the conference.
So I would imagine, well, I think it'd be good to have a public notice board at the park. And I'm definitely in support of that idea. I think that's a great way to get the word out to the community. And I think as the council, perhaps the appropriate thing to do would be to make a motion requesting that the County of Lake Parks, what is it, Parks and Recreation?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that Public Works, that they consider the allowance or building a public notice board. Yeah.
Right. I think we would have to put in a formal request, right, EJ, to them?
Yeah, I think with what they're doing, I can bring it to them and even just try to give you an answer before the next meeting, an email to you, and then you disperse to the I don't know if we can do that. I want to make sure that it gets done sooner, though. I don't want to make you guys wait wait till next meeting, and the next meeting comes and there's another stall.
Right.
I want to try to,
So, in that sense, I think we should maybe pass a motion in support of a public notice board at the park, and that way the work can be done, and we can approve that in the next minute's meetings if that's what the will of the council.
And then I can just say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I've been advised by the town of Lucerne. This is what we need, and we just go from there.
So,
and then that way we don't have to go back and forth and nothing gets stalled. Because I think that's your frustration is things get stalled by, let me see what I can do and come back, rather than you guys just recommending and then I take it and say, yeah, the town of Lucerne wants to see this, so let's see what we can do to get it done.
Can I say something? I talked to the guy that actually runs the park over there. I've been helping them on some issues on the park. So I know who he is, and I can go over and talk to him tomorrow and find out if he'll let us do it or not. Because I almost see him about every other day. If that's all right with the board?
If it's okay with your council.
So, I will make the motion. Well, I think any individual can contact the Parks and Recreation official and request that, or talk to the PJ and request a certain thing. So I think that'll be awesome actions on the part of both of you, and as individuals and as county officials. And that I'll make the motion to approve the motion in support of the erection of a public notice board at the Harbor Park.
Can I get a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Did you already open it up to public input?
No, I forgot.
Well, on this particular item.
Yeah, you're right. So.
Yeah, public input.
Yeah. Does anybody object or have anything they'd like to add?
What happened to the bulletin board we had out here?
I don't know.
I was working here at the time. That was built by the Lucerne Alpine Senior Inc. board, and at one point they were in support of that, and then months later they, it wasn't updated as much, and people thought it blocked the view of the rose garden, and so it was torn down. So that's my understanding of it.
Any other public comment?
I think it would be a great idea
Thank you.
because a lot goes on at the harbor.
I agree.
And we can inform people, new people, old people, whoever, voters. Just a win-win situation.
Did you have a comment, sir? Okay.
Just a suggestion that you put plastic or some way to cover it due to weather and to, you know, not to have, you know, people post things on there that may be inappropriate. So, because I've been in areas where if it's just a bulletin board sitting there, you know, I lived in the East Bay where it was a little bit more of it. People would put, you know, things that weren't appropriate for sale on things like that. And that way you kind of have more of a leeway of who's putting things, you know, if it has a plastic cover and they have to give it to somebody to put up, more or less just putting it up there. And then with the weather and it being close to the water, it might be something to consider.
Well, actually, when you have a public board like that, that's what they are. They're all over our county, and there's no plastic on anything.
And people are pretty respectful.
That's
here.
it. That's
They
it.
are.
That's
We
it.
already have two here now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
That's good.
They're all up and down highway.
Yeah.
People are pretty respectful
Oh,
here.
good.
Okay, all
So-
in favor?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, to get back to that.
Hi.
Aye. Yeah.
Motion passed, thank you. All right, well, I want to thank Herman Hernandez for coming here tonight and waiting. He actually is here from PG&E, and he's the public affairs representative, and he's actually coming here tonight to talk about what's going on with power outages and other information he'd like to share with us, so it's all yours.
Thank you very much for letting me be here. I don't know where to stand, but I can be very
Just
loud.
right
So
there. Yeah.
I brought a bunch of flyers, so if you haven't had a chance to grab them, they're on that table. My name is Herman Hernandez, and I am your local public affairs representative for Lake and Sonoma County. And we've been doing these community meetings and outreach since I started working for them 14 months ago. And this year we're really focusing on informing our customers and letting them know about the public safety power shutoff. But that's not the only thing that PG&E is doing to prevent wildfires from happening or making our infrastructure more resilient. In the county of Lake, since the majority of the county here is Tier 2 or Tier 3 high fire threat zones, you have a multitude of different programs that are running in unison. You have the Wildfire Safety Inspection Program, which is actually completed. Basically what I call that is a blitz of all our infrastructure. You're looking at over 50,000 transmission poles, over 700,000 distribution poles, over 30,000 miles of electrical line, all throughout our territory that they went and inspected and found emergency things that they needed to address, or what they call B tags, all the way down to E tags. And the B tags they need to be addressed in 60 to 90 days. All of the A tags, which would be urgent, have been addressed here in the county of Lake. You can actually get more information on our website that gives you weekly updates on the work that's being done on that program. You also have system hardening projects throughout the county where they're replacing conductor line and they're replacing poles, where you'll probably start seeing more metal poles in certain areas, as well as what they call hardwood. It's basically less likely to burn down during wildfires, and it's stronger wood, and they're also reconductoring the electrical lines. Basically, they're replacing the thin line with a very thick line that they call tree line. It's a little lighter grayish, and I did see it while I was driving up here from Sonoma County. The other thing you may have seen is enhanced vegetation management programs. Those are on top of the routine vegetation management work that PG&E does, and they've been doing a lot of work out here because I've been hearing from some of your fire chiefs that they're asking questions about what are we doing with the debris that's left on the side of the road from the vegetation work, and so I know it's happening here. The other thing that PG&E is doing is they have done some targeted underground in different areas in the high fire threat zones. One example that I always give is out in western Sonoma County in a Tier 3 zone. They did a project last year. It was, they undergrounded 3,000 feet of distribution line. It took about 9 months and cost around $1.5 million. So that kind of gives you an example that Undergrounding is definitely on the table and something that PG&E is strongly doing more of, but that is a long-term solution. And one of the main reasons why I'm here tonight is because my main goal is to inform you and educate you as much as I can about the public safety power shutoff and what it is, what is PG&E, meteorologists and engineers and leadership looking at when they're calling this event, as well as what you can do to better prepare yourselves, because you would be notified in advance that these are going to happen. This is not your typical winter storm outage where it randomly happens, or sometimes you'll get a letter or a phone call letting you know that in 7 days we're going to be doing some maintenance work or infrastructure work or vegetation management where we have to de-energize the lines to do work in your neighborhood. This is a public safety power shutoff, and it's separate from all the other outages. And the public safety power shutoff actually came from San Diego Gas and Electric. They've been implementing it in the South for about 12 years now, since 2007. PG&E, scientists, meteorologists, as well as our leadership, did not just go to SDG&E. They also traveled to Australia and New Zealand, where they're experiencing similar climate change as well as similar catastrophic wildfires, and they brought back a lot of different best practices that I personally wish they would have started implementing a long time ago. So they're behind the game, but one of the things that they are doing to prevent wildfires from happening through their infrastructure is this public safety power shutoff. So what is a public safety power shutoff? They are looking at 5 different variables. It doesn't just come down to a red flag warning. That is one of the variables that they look at, and it definitely triggers internally our meteorologists and our electric engineers to start monitoring the weather systems for our territory, and they're looking at humidity levels that are 20% or lower. They're looking at winds that are 25 miles per hour or more, wind gusts of 45 miles per hour or more, and they're looking at the fuel load, so how dry is the vegetation. We also have hundreds of people who live in Lake County, as well as thousands of people that live in Sonoma County that are supervisors or some sort of manager that are boots on the ground, that are also, during a red flag warning, reporting down to the Wildfire Safety Operations Center in San Francisco to give them up-to-date information. One thing that I forgot to mention at the beginning was PG&E has installed they've committed to installing 1,300 weather stations throughout their entire territory. Lake County, as of August, PG&E has actually installed 300 weather stations of those 1,300, and Lake County has gotten 12. And these are strategically placed throughout the county so that our meteorologists and leadership have up-to-date local climate on, and they're really, again, they're focusing on the electricity wires that are going through Tier 2 and Tier 3. So where the climate is low humidity level, high winds, and you have the red flag warning, they're closely monitoring that with those weather stations. When the variables are there, I spoke to a couple of very nice people before the meeting today, and asked them if you were impacted by October 2018's public safety power shutoff that actually shut off 12,500 customers here in Lake County, because these variables were all there. There was low humidity levels, the wind was high, and they de-energized distribution lines on the eastern part of Lake County that was feeding UV electricity. And one thing to note is that PG&E was going to call a public safety power shutoff in November. We started the process, notified our customers, notified the emergency response leads, and you may have gotten an IXL, but the November one, we actually did not de-energize the lines. But the important thing to note on that is they were going to de-energize the same exact electricity lines, but they were actually, they were able to reconfigure the grid so that less customers were impacted. So in that one, there was only 6,000 customers that would have lost power compared to the 12,500 that lost power earlier that year. So moving on to the notification system, and one thing I want to just mention before I get into that is that, are you familiar with the California Public Utility Commission High Fire Threat Map? By a show of hands. Because that is a publicly accessible map where you can actually look up your address and find out if you live in a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 zone. And Tier 2 is an elevated fire threat zone. Tier 3 is the worst, so that's extreme fire threat zone. And that's important to know, but it's also important to know that even if you don't live in one of those zones, you may live in a Tier 1 zone, your power can still be impacted by a public safety power shutoff because of the lines going through those high fire threat zones. So, it's important to have a plan, and it's very, very, very important to make sure that your neighbors are aware that this is something that's going to be happening in our communities. And that's where it gets very, people don't pay attention to the mailers that they get, their emails, the ads in the radio, the ads in the newspaper, the ads. So it's very important that we work together. Regardless of if you agree with the strategy or not, people need to know that this may happen, and people need to have a plan before it does happen. So if you create your plan, PG&E is shooting for a 48 to 72 hour notification. That's the gold standard. So we want to make sure that you're aware that this is going to be happening in your community. One thing that I want to let all of you in here know is that if you do not get a notification from PG&E and you're a PG&E customer, it means that you're not going to be impacted. 99.9% sure that you will not be impacted if you do not receive a notification. But because we're working with local emergency and law enforcement, you may get a nixle. That's where people get very confused. I shared a flyer with you because this year one of the improvements that PG&E made is on that flyer there's a link that you will be able to either call or access through your phone or your computer and look up your address and make sure that you, to find out if you're going to be impacted by a PSPS. That's a huge improvement from what we had last year, because last year you were not able to do that. So the notifications. We will notify you at 48 hours, we will notify you at 24 hours, and we will notify you as soon as we are going to, right before we turn the power off. And we would notify you during the actual outage, because as you noticed last year, the entire county was not completely shut down, so there was still access to telecom and stations that you were able to use your cell phone during the outage. So that's another important thing. Some homework for tonight would be to make sure to go to your account, if you call it in or if you use our My Account website, and update your contact information. And you can also add the other people that you live with to that emergency contact information. And I've heard that it's a lot easier to add more contacts if you call us in our 1-800 number, which is on the flyers that I've shared with you this evening. So during the actual outage, re-energizing the lines. One of the reasons why it takes us longer in the summertime to re-energize lines than in the wintertime is because PG&E disables a technology called reclosers. And basically what that does is it's a technology in the wintertime. If you've ever been in your house and the power goes out and then all of a sudden it flickers back on, it goes out and then it comes back on. That is a recloser. Basically it has technology that tests a line. If it's hit by a squirrel or if it's hit by vegetation or birds, it tests the line to make sure nothing is broken on the line. In the summertime, we disable that technology because it can cause fires. So that actually is harder for us when we're re-energizing because those are disabled. So first of all, we have to wait for the weather system to go through. Last year in October, the power was shut off at 8 p.m. By 6 a.m. the next morning, our crews were driving and walking up hills, and helicopters were flying around to make sure that none of our infrastructure was damaged and there was no vegetation leaning on the wires. Because if we were to re-energize the lines and the wires are down, that can cause a fire. So we have to visually inspect every inch of the line. This year, the good news is that we have more helicopters, so depending on the scale of the outage, it could be shortened. But the bad news is this year is that we also have transmission lines that may be de-energized that can impact more customers and more lines, meaning we would have to inspect more electrical lines, depending on how big the outage actually is. Just to let you know, in June, we did have a public safety power shutoff this year. It impacted eastern Napa County, about 1,800 customers, and it impacted about 20,000 people in the area of Butte County. And they both had their outages last about 24 hours for both. So as the weather system passes through, our guys are going, inspecting the lines, and then they can sectionalize or segment or reconfigure the grid so that if there is damage, they are able to repower certain neighborhoods and customers as they're fixing the damaged infrastructure. Once they fix the damaged infrastructure, all the lights go back on, and if you left the community because you wanted to go down into Sonoma County or over to Colusa because you have family there to stay with them because they still have power, then you would be notified that the power is back on in your home. There's a phone number on the flyers that if you have any questions, we highly encourage you to call because that is your main hotline for anything that is wildfire safety related, and that includes the public safety power shutoff. And then, like I said earlier, we sent out multiple postcards, multiple mailers. My parents live in Guerneville, out in West Sonoma County, and I saw that they got a huge trifold that had a sticker in it that you can create your contact list to put on your refrigerator. We can't inform people enough. So if there's two things that you get out of tonight's presentation is that we got to inform our community, and number two is we have to have a plan should this happen in our community. So that's pretty much all I got for you tonight, and I'm here to answer any questions or concerns. Yes, sir.
It's clear that the behavior of PG&E has been unacceptable. And we've heard of shutoffs and how to prepare for it. Shutoffs, how to prepare for it. We have not heard that if there is an existing fire, PG&E will not shut off the power. We also have not heard of the status of the current day, or the current week. What's the likelihood of shutoff? You have affected businesses, you have affected residents in a negative way, and in this part of America, it's hurting. So PG&E is going in the wrong direction. They're going in the right direction to do what they've neglected for many years. But now they need to go in the direction of the public to cooperate with them or to help them understand it in a way that they can live their daily life without fear. Take that back. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there any way that when PG&E calls you or notifies you that how long it's going to be on?
This question was about, is there any way that PG&E can notify you when there is a public safety power shutoff, how long it's going to be out? So let me it's been a long day, so hold on. Let me figure this. I know this question comes up all the time. So when they're first de-energizing the lines, it all depends on, we bring people, everyone who works for PG&E stops what they're doing, and they pretty much transform into responding to the issue. So you'll have people coming here from the coast, coming down from Bakersfield, and coming up from Monterey if they don't have an outage. And depending on how many resources we have and boots on the ground, This year we have 13 helicopters. Last year we had 4. So that's a big increase. There will be notifications during the actual outage of how long or when to expect your, they call it ETOR, estimated time of restoration. That information will be made public as soon as possible, but during the initial notifications, that information is not shared because we don't actually know, because it all depends on how many resources we have. What I can tell you is last year, when the 12,500 customers got de-energized, within 24 hours, 70% of Lake County was back on, and then within 36 hours, the whole county was back. And that information, there's going to be a phone number that you can call to get that information, and depending on where the outage actually happens, we will have what we're calling a community resource center. It'll be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. from within 24 hours of these notices going out, where they will have that information there, because it's going to be full. It'd be like, for example, using this room as a community resource center, we would bring in our backup generators. If it doesn't have a generator, we would fully be staffed by PG&E employees, no cost through the facility owner. We would reimburse them. You'd have waters, food, and charging stations, and it would be air conditioned. But to answer your question specifically, it just depends on once the power outage goes out and how many people we can get. The other thing that impacts re-energization is the length of the weather, the length of the extreme weather that's passing through the territory. So we've lucked out the last 3 times that PG&E's done one of these, because it's usually under 12 hours where we can go and start inspecting the lines. And then I know yours was a comment, but I just realized that, so if there was an active fire during a public safety power shutoff, that's something that the Cal OES, Cal Fire, the governor's office, and the public utility that's involved in the shutoff would have to make decisions on that. So that at that point, it would be out of PG&E. It would be a state decision.
Okay, but still, the announcement of the conditions, current week, month, how are we doing? Is we're close to a shutdown, or we're fine? We're having current natural weather. This is the weather we've had for a long time. But you're continually announcing shut off. And now people don't know, well, tomorrow will be okay or not. If you can inform us of your status as far as what you see and what we see, we can know that we're fine. Oh, continue your life for a week. Continue your life for 2 weeks.
That's a great call out. I heard that information is going to be made public by PG&E, and
soon?
It's soon. Yeah, it's coming soon, because we've heard that from a lot of our government partners as well, and PG&E is getting pushed on creating a kind of like a status on what we get for wildfire, like what's the probability of a wildfire. Well, now we're going to have what's the probability of a public safety
because
power
it's affecting business really bad.
Right.
And it's affecting a lot of homeowners. They don't know what's going to happen, and so they're huddling down. They're just, it's life is not as usual. They're not carrying on business as usual. So it means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Another thing is, what happens when we have a shutdown and we can't get gas?
So his question was, what happens if we have a shutdown and we can't get gas? I know, yes, sir.
There are gas stations open. There's one in Upper Lake. It's going to be open.
There's actually,
As far as we have a shutdown everywhere.
No, there will be something open.
so I
Foods etc. will be open. They'll have a generator.
I think it was Record B or I think it was Record B. They came out with a list of 100 businesses that would be open during a public safety power shutoff. It came out in July or late June, and I know that there's 3 or 4 gas stations that said they can remain open. The other thing is you would ideally have 24 to 48 hours to hopefully plan to get gas before the shutdown actually happens. If it happens during an actual shutdown, I would try to identify which gas stations would be open. I know that's not the right answer.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
The Chevron station at least will go.
The Chevron station needs to have a generator.
Yes.
I think the
Also,
Chevron
like,
over off of the,
will be open.
okay, yeah.
That was well.
Yeah. The Chevron or the, what's it called, the roundabout, there you go. Any other questions or concerns? Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention, because this question does come up. What are you doing for medically fragile customers or people that depend on keeping their medication refrigerated or heated? So my mom has rheumatoid arthritis. Before I worked for PG&E, I had no idea that they had a medical baseline rate. If you've never heard of that, I highly recommend you calling our 1-800-743-5000 number or going on our website to see if you qualify for the medical baseline rate. Because what that means is, I mean, if you have a CPAP machine, if you have oxygen tank, if you have any type of medical device at home, you can get locked into this rate and it's a lower rate. But you also come up in our system as a medical baseline customer, and PG&E, if you do not answer the phone the first time from the robocall, you would actually get a real live phone banker who's calling and making contact with all of our medical baseline customers in the impacted areas. If you don't answer the phone at all, we have boots on the ground and the blue trucks who will be driving around, knocking on doors, door to door, leading up to the public safety power shutoff. And if they don't answer the door, we can't go in the house, but we do leave a door hanger just in case you're out of town. It says the date and time of the potential shutoff. So if you have any medical devices at home, it's very important that you look up the medical baseline customer information on your bill and try to get locked into that rate, because you'll save money, but you'll also get special contact during a public safety power shutoff.
Thank you.
Herman, thanks for coming.
No problem.
I want to clarify, you said PG&E was in the process of installing 300 weather stations?
They've installed 300 and they've committed to installing 1,300 by 2022.
And how many have currently been installed in Lake County?
12.
It's currently, and how many more will be installed?
I would say it's safe. I'm not 100% sure, but it's safe to say that you'll probably see another 12 at the least.
And to speak to Dale's concern, will that information be transparent?
All of our weather stations are actually, you can access them through a public website. All that information is shared amongst emergency agencies and news agencies. It's on mesowest.utah.edu. And you can actually look up the weather stations and get the up-to-date information from each one of those stations. The other thing that PG&E has done is they've been in, this is more for fire prevention and fire spotting, but they've invested in high-definition cameras in the highest points in their territory, and they're looking at installing 600 by 2022. 600 or more, because CAL FIRE and other emergency agencies already have these installed. But there is one that's already been installed, I believe, on Canocti. And you can actually see during an actual live fire, people use it to look at this, to watch the smoke or identify smoke and then allocate their resources. And that's also public information.
Thank you.
It would be great if we had a year's notice about this, but now we have it all of a sudden. So what you're doing now might not affect us because it's too far in the future. So the words, the actions, they're late.
Thank you, Herman, for coming out tonight. I don't know where you drove from, but I think it was far.
No, it was just Santa Rosa. It's only an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I have one thing I wanted to bring up. I think that our other meetings that we have, these other meetings on the water things that we're discussing away from this board, all our businesses should be addressed here, not on a special meeting somewhere else. And I make a motion to put on the agenda for next to discuss it. So if we have another water meeting, it's done here. It's not done at the fire station. It's done here in front of everybody.
And it's not a meeting, it's not your meeting.
No, I'm not saying that, but all meetings, everything that we do with Lucerne should be addressed here, not at another function.
So getting away from subcommittees.
I want to get away from subcommittee meetings. I want to bring all the meetings and anything we have to do with Lucerne right here. And instead of having all these other sub-meetings that we've had in the last 3 months.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to be?
That's the way it's supposed to be, and that's the way I want to, that's the way I would like to see it done. Because on other times, there's been times that I've had to come to another meeting, which I had plans to do, or had to get, at the time I'm working, I'm going to be retiring here pretty quick. But the subject of the meeting should be just not anymore. If we're going to do something with the water, or we're going to do something for Lucerne, it's done at a meeting like it is tonight. And that's my proposal to be put on. That's what I'm suggesting. It's,
Where's the microphone?
So I think the suggestion is to restrict the council to just regular meetings?
no, all your stuff are the meetings that we're having, no more. If we're gonna have a water meeting.
That's
right.
exactly, that's a restriction of the council to just regular meetings.
No, we're gonna have your meeting, this is gonna be on the agenda, and it's gonna be in front of everybody, we won't, and that's, all our businesses will be discussed in front of the people.
This meeting is what's called a regular meeting.
Right. So
Okay,
everything we
so
do
you're
for
saying
Lucerne-
that all of our meetings should be regular meetings and that we shouldn't have any subcommittees?
That's
So
right.
Is that right? Okay.
I'll correct that, and I will put it on the agenda for the next meeting for us to discuss.
Okay.
And, yeah. All right, I make a,
There's the sites, I remember we're juggling 2 sites, the Lake County's website having our information and agendas, and then the Google Drive site thingy that has the, we didn't get to that today, right? So is that gonna be next meeting?
no, we didn't get that today, so I sent out the agenda. I didn't get any responses back that people wanted to add to it, so,
Oh, no problem, could we have it added to the next one?
yes. We'll discuss it then. All right. Can I get a motion?
To adjourn?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.